listening to Finding Your Genius Zone with Dirk Novell. It's not just a job. It's not just a paycheck. Or at least it doesn't have to be. With the help of experts across industries, Dirk helps you find your passion and career, as well as exposing the unknown parts of every vocation. Let's go deep. Let's find your genius zone right now. Here's Dirk Novell.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. This is Dirk Novell, and on with me is a friend of mine, a new friend, John Utley. And John is a guy that I met. He lives in my area, and we still drink coffee at the same spot. And over a period of time, I think the first time I met John, he was wearing an Oregon Ducks, or the color of the Ducks. And I'm not a Duck fan, but I think that's what kicked off our conversation. But I always noticed John deep in thought. He was always on his computer, and you could tell he was working on big things. But long story short, we got to know each other. Super cool guy. I really enjoy hanging out with him. And, you know, I wanted to him on this show just because I'm super impressed with his background, not only what he's been doing, you know, for the last 3-4 decades, but he's also doing some cool stuff as well, which I think is important to understand, that when you're in a career, it doesn't always mean that it's your only career. It can lead to other situations. So I'm going to throw it back to John, and he's going to talk a little bit about what he does, what he's done, and we'll go from there. Welcome, John.
Hey, thanks. I think for the intro. I'm not too sure.
Oh, was that a bad one?
No, you left out some important details of coffee, but no, it's good.
Are you a Duck? Was that right? Were you a Duck?
Yeah. Well, that's because my youngest boy was born literally on campus. We did some time in Eugene. So I drank the Duck Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Time in Eugene sounds about right. I've heard it's a cool town. I'm just a Husky, and I got tired of them kicking our butt for so long. So anyway, yeah. So John, tell us a little bit about kind of maybe what you do, what you've done, the roles you've had in technology.
Yeah, I'll just give you the quick Twitter version. But I'd say this, you know, when I first started out in my career, none of the big companies would hire me. No offense to my university, Central Washington University over there in Ellensburg.
Eberg, baby.
Right. So I was like, shoot, what am I going to do? So I was fortunate. I think that's not how I saw it back in the day, but to work at 3 startups where I was employee 6, 11, and 19. And I'll never forget, before I started, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I worked for a recruiting company. And this is back in the day when candidates had to pay the fee. Mm-hmm. So I kind of ADD'd you, Dirk, just for a second, but I thought this is kind of cool. But this will be, again, Twitter version. But because I didn't know what I wanted, I kind of know what I wanted to do, but I didn't want to pay the fee. It was like $3,000 when I was, 22 or something. But I worked at Business Careers. It's a headhunting company. I think it's still around in downtown Seattle.
I think so.
And it was straight commission. And I'm not kidding when I say this. You've heard it before, but well, you and I know what the Yellow Pages are, but when I started, my boss, his name was Sam Henry. I think he's still a recruiter to this day. Anyways, very first day, he throws the Yellow Pages on my desk, which was it was a cubicle in a bullpen, and he was on the other side of me. But he said, hey, I want you to go through the Yellow Pages and find companies that are hiring. And I was like, oh, this is cool. So I'll tell you the reason why I did it, though, and this is 10 seconds, is I wanted to get exposed to what was out there. And what I would do, this is awful because I'm dating myself massively, but at 5 o'clock, everybody would go home. I would stay there and go through the filing cabinets. We didn't have the internet back then. And I'd be looking for these jobs. And I was there exactly 34 days, but I found this company selling dial-up internet to companies with multiple locations. So that's how I got into tech, and I started selling dial-up, for a startup. And so that's how things got kicked off.
Was that Spry?
No.
SpryNet? Okay.
No, I'm trying to blank out. If you were to ask me, I don't even know if I could tell you the name.
I had a buddy, Kelly Smith. He worked at Real Networks, but before that, Internet in a Box. It was a company that would send us to you on it. I remember the dial-up, but anyway.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I was selling tech right in the thick of the dot-com era, but I was so, I was so young. Well, when it comes to the dot-com era, I was so young, and I was thinking to myself, I know there's a lot of money being made, but I don't know where to start. So I was thinking that. But anyways, I was fortunate, not realizing it, that I was in the tech space. So that's how I got started. Now, again, short answer on what do I do? I've been fortunate enough to work again at those startups, and all three of those, by the way, all had successful IPOs, and I was responsible for the top line revenue. I had, private equity, venture capitalist pressures. I remember having my own little analyst ankle biter at one of the companies that would track and trace every move I did. So I did that, but then also I was lucky enough to work at Salesforce, and that's really kind of like what opened my eyes to corporate America, like how to really run a business. This is before Salesforce was a household name. So I won't spend too much time there. But then I went to IBM, and I led a sector, and this is really relevant. I think I'll spend a second on this.
Yeah.
But I was responsible for one of their sectors, and that was the industrial sector. And I started there as a consultant in 2014. Okay. And that sector, the industrial sector, and it was automotive, oil and gas, consumer goods, and electronics. That's what I was responsible for, the top line revenue for that. So we had a couple hundred sellers, inside, outside, running around, trying to sell all kinds of high tech stuff.
Okay.
So now what I was thinking though, Dirk, is, because really what I do is, really not that, exciting, but I was thinking of pivoting because I was having a conversation. You tell me if I don't go there, but, in 2014, I was talking to myself. I know you saw me talk to myself at the coffee shop a few times.
A lot, actually.
Yeah.
That's why I kind of went to the other side of the coffee shop.
But I was approaching 50, and you tell me if I'm out of bounds, if I go. But,
nothing's out of bounds, brother.
Okay.
Just speak your mind. Say whatever you want.
Okay. So no disrespect to IBM, but there was some lawsuits going on around age discrimination. Like we would go down the hallway and it was a joke. Us old, I was in my late 40s at the time, but I remember seeing these, guys in their late or in their 50s saying, "Oh my gosh, you're still here. You're still here." It was a joke because of their age.
Yeah. So
that really woke me up, just because I had a mortgage and 3 kids and, married and all that kind of stuff. So the conversation myself, and this is so relevant to today, but the conversation I was having with myself is, how can I add value in my 50s without being discriminated against? Because I was terrified. It's probably bad, but I live my life kind of paranoid. So sometimes that's good, sometimes it's bad. But I'll say this is, I knew that the world was going to change. And by the way, I was leading, when I was at IBM, I was leading a team in the blockchain space. And for those of you that are familiar with blockchain, that's the tech under crypto. So I'm one of the OGs in the blockchain space. And I knew what blockchain could do, good and bad, globally. And at the time, blockchain was just getting started. It was just being birthed. But the problem was for me is I knew that blockchain was also going to literally decimate jobs in a matter of years, not back in 2014, 2015, right? So I was comparing blockchain with AI. I was also selling AI, machine learning, cybersecurity, quantum on the cloud just got launched. So then I was thinking, gosh, out of all of these, which ones are going to be, like, from a growth perspective and the most disruptive, right? And I just kept coming back to blockchain. So, and I would, like my recruiting story, when I would stay after work, it was kind of the same similar story. When I was at IBM, I would just literally read as much information as I could, because I was fortunate enough to have access into like Forrester, Gartner, those kind of reports that cost $1,000, $5,000. So I was soaking those in. trying to figure out my lane. Anyways, after just being a voracious reader for about 18 months, I decided to double down on blockchain. And that was back in 2015. And it's ironic because here in 2023, it's becoming, part of the conversation per se. And it's going to really be main stage here in a couple of years before people, the average person really knows it. So am I okay?
Yeah, no, this is great. I mean, there's a lot of things that are coming up. This is part of my exposure to you. Is I remember it's always difficult for guys like you to have to explain things to guys like me. Like I remember asking you about crypto, and I had some friends in that industry that you're aware of. But you're always you seem to be really in the flow in terms of like you genuinely seem enthusiastic. And part of this podcast is not only educating people on careers, but interviewing people who are in their flow, in their genius zone. And I'm not saying like you're the genius of the world, but you talk about going after the reading and the content. You seem to really, like from what I observe, you really seem to be into this stuff.
And yes, and that's a good kind of segue. I think, and I'm being really transparent. So, and I think a lot of it, Dirk, has to do with just kind of being paranoid. I mean, the world is flat. Tom Friedman, New York Times columnist, wrote a book, The World is Flat. Gosh, I think it was 15 years ago. And that really spooked me, meaning my competition, even though I was living and working in Seattle, my competition was not just in Seattle anymore or Portland or New York City. It was anywhere. India, China, Japan. I was like, oh gosh, I am not that, to your point a few seconds ago. I am not I'm not that intelligent, and I'm okay with that, but I had to quickly figure out my lane. So, and what's interesting is when I'm going to fast forward here soon to this day, because I'm literally going through the same mental gymnastics today as I was back in 2014 and 2015, but today versus back then, it's like 10x worse. The environment we're in for people that either want to, if I'm 23 or 24, get into a new career, or, we just had the great resignation in the US, 14 months ago. And, some of these people are probably having the same similar conversation that I had in 2015 or that I'm having now, which I really can't wait to jump into that in a second.
Yeah.
But I'll say this. Personally, when I finally figured out what the heck blockchain was, and it took me about 1.5 years to figure it out, I was asking myself the question of, hey, so first of all, from a W-2 standpoint, I knew I wanted to stay in corporate America for maybe the next 10 years. And I knew blockchain was it. And with LinkedIn, if I updated my LinkedIn page properly, not just with the content, but where the content would go within my LinkedIn page from an SEO perspective, that my LinkedIn page, I have 15,000 first degree connections. And by design, 14,000 of those are recruiters by design. And I knew that if I had the right content strategically located in my LinkedIn page, that once there would be blockchain recruiters, because at the time there wasn't, but they would eventually find me. And they did. So that.
Yeah, real quick, I don't mean to interrupt you, because this is such an interesting, I haven't had anyone yet talk about this niche or this, So I would just for the audience, if you're, 24, 25 or whatever, and you're like, I've heard of it, I know a buddy, and can you just do your best to give us a 4 or 5 sentence or whatever description? How would you define blockchain? And maybe more importantly, how is it going to change things, or how is it changing things, and why are you so into it?
What's funny, back in 2015, I was mostly attracted to it for the goodness. So for example, and this cuts both ways. So what I'll never forget is there was this woman, I never met her, but it was a use case where she would grow No, that she was doing recycling. She was in a third world country. She would go into like these dumps, like a dumpster diver, just trying to look for recyclables, right? And then what she would do is take that, say, aluminum can and go turn it in and get basically nothing for it. But eventually that aluminum can would make it through 9 different middlemen, eventually, as an example, to the end destination. Well, I'll never forget, because of blockchain, there does not need to be any middlemen anymore because of the smart contracts. So what I quickly learned was that woman could now bypass those 8 steps and go directly to the source and have a buyer-seller relationship with no middleman because of the blockchain. It could validate.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't mean to jump in, but like, to me, this is awesome. But like, I feel like it's freedom. It's equality, right? Like you're allowing people in other parts of the world that would never have access to kind of cut to the chase and go right to the consumer or whatever. To me, it's actually just evening things out. Would you say that is accurate? Okay.
It's definitely going to level the playing field. And, I think there's, what is it? 3 or 4 billion people across the world that do not have a bank account, let alone just here in America. In the States, there's 40 million people that don't have a bank account. And now with blockchain and digital wallets, you don't need one. Right. Yeah. And it will allow, if you want to work for yourself, it will allow you to work for yourself because of the transparency. You will be perceived as like a trusted source. I'm kind of turning into a little bit of a word salad guy a little bit. I'm trying to be, kind of water this down a little bit.
Well, real quick, when you're talking about it, keep in mind, you got people watching right now that are like interested, right? I mean, I remember coming out of college and, video, audio streaming, video over the internet was sexy, right? It was different. And I went to work for Mark Cuban and we did that. People think about what kind of opportunities are available like for people in this space.
Yeah. Geez. Okay. Yeah. Okay. You got it. By the way, before this is an answer to your question. So by the way, there's a hedge fund called ARK Invest, ARK Invest. Okay.
Yeah. You sent me the annual. That was amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome. So Cathie Wood, legend in the making, founder, she publicizes all of her findings. And her company puts out, it's called Big Ideas 2023. Yeah, she's into tech, but it's not just blockchain and AI, which she's into, but she announces every year, the hot trends, and, to quantify it, there's like 13 or 14 every year. So she's in the healthcare space as well. But the reason why I mentioned that is because it's just loaded with quality data. If anybody's very, interested, and it's free. It's like 100-page PDF loaded with content.
Yeah,
right?
I read it. You gave it to me about a year ago. Robotics, AI. Blockchain. These are all I don't mean to interrupt you again, but taking a step back, like what John's talking about is the future, right? I mean, industries that are going to make Amazon look like a 7-Eleven, maybe, right? I mean, they're gonna take over. So I think it's really important to clue into what he's talking about and actually access this data, and read up about it, because this is the future, right? And these are where the jobs are.
Yeah. So my suggestion would be is to find material position papers like that. Now, when it comes to blockchain in particular, the CAGR, the cumulative average growth rate, it's kind of like a batting average, but it is off the charts between now and like 2027. Blockchain is one of blockchain AI, more so blockchain, because AI with the data sets, there's certain use cases where, like with this new GPT-4 that's out, banks cannot use that. For obvious reasons. So they're going to have their own little small data sets. But blockchain, from my understanding, is one of the few technologies that will literally cut through slice through every single sector and every single industry, which is great. However, there's a downside. And the downside is that it is going to literally annihilate jobs. Annihilate. So if it doesn't, here we go. A lot of us have been saying as of recent that, and here's the saying, and I've said it, is, wow. How did I say this? Wow. We'll never see that again. Meaning, like, say, books, hard paper books. Now, they're not extinct, but I can't come up with the example. But here's my point. We are going to be saying to ourselves now, wow, that's never going to be the same again. If that makes sense, right? That's going to be kind of the new thing, the new saying, in my opinion. And here's why I say that, is because if you want to go into marketing, if you want to be an attorney, right? My comment or thought to anybody considering what lane you want to pick, just be sure that your career cannot be replaced either by blockchain, because it's not going to need a middleman per se, or GPT-4, right? Now, when it was just blockchain, I was worried. Now with GPT-4, because I'm probably 500 hours now deep into GPT-4, not just GPT-3. And yeah, I probably should pause here, Dirk, because now, and where I'm at in my life, I'm having this conversation again with what I had in 2015, because now I'm not worried about age discrimination anymore. I'm worried about automation, aka the blockchain, combined with GPT-4. Right?
Yeah, I mean, you're bringing up, this is what I love about these discussions, is you're just kind of going down a road that's actually a brilliant thing to talk about. Is, when you're 24, 25, whatever, I keep saying those ages, you could be 35 watching this, just kind of changing your career, but you're thinking about things along the lines of, I just need a job, I need to pay rent, I need to pay a mortgage, I'm starting a family. But I don't, so two things. I don't think a lot of people think the Genius Zone is about aligning yourself in a career that matches your true skills, your interests, your passions. And, my dad's voice is like, son, just get a job. You don't have to love your job. But I really disagree. I've seen people really slow down when they're not into what they're doing. And I've seen people really accelerate in terms of be really friggin' successful when they love it. And so on one hand, I want to see more people identify and think about like their uniqueness and how it works with a certain career. But what you're talking about is another thing that people need to think about is, the world changes, industries change, technology changes, and you need to be really aware of whatever you're getting into, the longevity. And I know 10 years ago, we didn't know much about blockchain, or a lot of people weren't talking about it. So you don't know. But I also think what, John, you're bringing up is a really good point of people just really, like, is this career going to be around? Right?
Yeah, 100%.
I love that.
Yeah. Is it going to be around tomorrow? Things are changing. That old saying, like that word exponentially?
Yep.
Even that's changed. Things aren't changing exponentially anymore. They're changing. We have to start thinking linear. Like things are going like straight up, as an example. And part of that reason now is because, GPT-4 has allowed the world to scale ideas, right? I knew back in 2015 that cryptocurrencies were going to be a thing this decade. But that also meant that the world would have to dramatically change. And sure, it's changed a lot in the last 8 years. But this decade, let alone this next 5 years, we're going to see more change in the next 5 years than we've seen in the last 100 years. So for anybody that's interested or thinking about changing their career or getting into one, either it could be scary or it could be an amazing time. And I'll give you like, if it's okay, I'll give you an example of like what I'm kicking around for myself. So by the way, what I didn't say is, back in 2015, well, actually back in the .com era, when I was talking about that, I missed that opportunity and I kicked myself, right? And I swore to myself I would never do that again. Well, guess what happened? In the global financial crisis, I lost everything. I'm like, dang it, that happened twice, right? Yeah. So I vowed to myself, and I knew that crypto was going to be a thing. But then I also knew back in 2015 that every company, as an example, would have their own crypto. So fast forward today, well, now there's over 23,000 of them. So why am I saying this? And that's because I taught myself how to do technical analysis starting back in 2015. And there's a reason why I'm telling you this. Is you fast forward to today, I'm well over 12,000 hours into that. Started a hedge fund, on the Bitcoin, Ethereum futures, on the Chicago Mercantile. The setup that I built for that hedge fund was something that I taught myself the hard way over the last 8 years. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is because, from an investment standpoint, I thought, you know what, that's the only way I'm going to be able to figure out which is going to be a winner, the fastest horse in terms of crypto, which is great, love it. But it's also going to allow me to figure out which sector, which industry is going to be good or bad. Because in this world we also live in today, the old world is decaying right in front of our eyes. And there's a new world being built right in front of our eyes, which most people can't see, which is, and I mean this respectfully, because our society has created people to be delusional. And I mean that it respectfully.
Right? Are you a Trump fan? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not, you know what? I'll put it to you this way. Common sense is the new superpower. How about that?
I love it. No, I'm kidding.
Right. You know what I mean?
I love it, dude. I mean, because you're throwing out a lot of gold. Like, I'm just thinking about what a younger person's, how they're interpreting all this. Like it scares me. I mean, I'm 52. You don't have to tell me how old you are. But like, I'm listening to you and like, but this is stuff like I've seen you're excited. Like you love this, like you're working your ass off, but like, I can tell. It's like when I design homes, like I'll stay up till 3 a.m, designing floor plans or whatever. I love it. Like you really love it. And I don't think you would even be I don't even think you'd be where you are if you didn't love it. So can you just talk a little bit about like the importance of having real interest and drive around what you do? I mean, I feel like you have had jobs probably where you're just kind of, doing what you can. And then you got this thing that's just kind of exciting. Like, talk to us about how it feels in both camps.
I got to be careful because,
or just talk about how it feels in the camp that, like excites you.
Here we go. Well, I'll just share this for anybody that's considering, in corporate America. So the company I work at now bought the business unit at IBM, right? So I feel like this is an IBM sister company. The company I work at now is I think there's 200,000 of us. We do about 12 billion in revenue. So I'm on the sales and marketing side. And, with COVID, I said, well, that'll never be the same. Right. Well, client visits, you don't go on site anymore. As an example, we just do this. So a lot of things have changed, which has directly negatively impacted how to create pipeline. If you're in sales, right? And the reason why I say that is because the culture, and I'll just speak for my world, is brutal. It is finger pointing left and right. Right. I mean, today's corporate America is different than what it was just a few years ago.
Are you talking about like cover your ass, like make a mistake, something didn't go well, it wasn't me, it was that dude down the hall, that kind of stuff?
it's brutal.
And not to get too political, but I want to incorporate this. You're talking about your age, and I mean, this isn't a political podcast, but like, were you also getting after the fact that you're a white male? I mean, is that also something?
Okay, so, and man, I am not exaggerating when I say this, but I talk to HR often, because I'm hiring, and this just happened a few weeks ago, and this woman said to me, John, I do not want you to hire, and this is verbatim, John, I do not want you to hire any more white old males. I was like, hey, I don't want to name her name, but I was like, that's me. And so not only that, did she say it once? I think I've heard it probably 7 or 8 times. So now, by the way, this is another thing. So there's another massive movement, right? The environmental social governance, ESG movement, and corporate America, especially the enterprises, the executive staff, and this is worth mentioning, a high percentage of their annual bonus is around their ESG score, which is like our credit score. So why is that relevant? Well, that is because of this diversity and inclusion that's taking place, right? And I mean no disrespect when I say any of this stuff.
No,
but
I'm not taking it that way, but it's a reality. I mean, it is what it is. And people need to think about this as it relates to a career.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm not a fan of corporate America. I think I have, I drank the Kool-Aid. I was indoctrinated, unfortunately, but which led me to, because I can read the charts, I can tell now which industries are decaying and which ones are just being birthed, as an example. But I will say this, if it's okay, Dirk, for me, I want to work for myself, and that's what I'm doing behind the scenes. That's why I haven't seen yet coffee. And right now, there could not be a better time to work for yourself, period. And this could be either, I'm not suggesting like doing brick and mortar, like opening up a retail store. Everything's online. And that is where the world is going. The tools out there are unfreaking believable. And that's what, for my business, like for example, ChatGPT-4. I am now, as we speak, training GPT-4 to be an employee. So right now I have 3 employees in my business, and I'm one of the 3, right? And for example, so ChatGPT will be kind of the front end interface for people that knock on my door to my online business, right? And by the way, as another side note, I heard this the other day that in 2023 will be the first year where we see, as an example, say $10 million companies that are 10 million in revenue, right? There's going to be tons of them now with 1 employee. And that's because of AI / GPT-4, right?
So I know what that is. I actually wrote the code for it. So I know it.
That's awesome.
No. Okay. So can you kind of break that down in a simple way? I mean, not in a simple, but just try to like explain that. Like, let's say my mom's watching this.
Yeah.
Tell us what it is, and give us a couple of examples of how it's going to eliminate certain jobs.
Yeah. The best way I describe GPT-4 is Star Wars. So, Luke Skywalker, because Star Wars is awesome. I think it's impacted like 4 generations now. Right.
Yeah.
But Luke Skywalker in the very first one with, R2-D2 could be CP3, CP3, I'm saying his name,
CP3O.
Yeah. So it's basically like, I'm Luke and you, I'm trying to think, you are
Harrison
Chewbacca.
Ford. No, I'm Harrison Ford.
I was thinking Chewie.
All right.
Chewbacca.
You'll be that.
Or you're Princess Leia.
You'll be, okay. I'll be her.
But literally it's, so how like Luke would literally talk to R2-D2 as a human. that is the way GPT-4 is designed. You literally talk to that thing like a human. Doesn't matter your intellect, your experience. And this is the thing. The value of education is on the table, meaning, like University of Austin, of all campuses, announced they're going to ban GPT-4 on campus. This was like a month ago, or GPT-3 at the time. And I'm just thinking to myself, you guys, that's not the way to do it. We have got to figure out, how do we work with, not against?
Hell yeah.
Right? Because, if somebody wants to, get into a new career, the first thing I would suggest is, if you don't have access to, good position papers, that cost $5,000, which is sub 1% of the population in the US, you got to have a nice seat at the table for the company you're working at. Literally, GPT-4, it's now $20 a month. It was free, but it's only $20. And just literally, like, I was talking to him the other night about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Like, hey, tell me, first of all, I said, hey, tell me the top 10, the world's biggest challenges. So we listed off the top 10. Then I said, well, tell me, how can Bitcoin solve that? Just as an example, I'm just using that as an example. But if somebody is interested in, getting into a field or starting a business, I would lean on GPT-4 all day long.
To ask them about certain careers?
Certain careers. Yep, okay. Exactly.
So it's providing information, right? It's like Siri or whatever, you want to play music, you ask. This is much deeper. So you're asking them to provide content. So writing papers, whatever, getting information. What else is it doing? Is it just information based? It's not actually taking action, or does it like set up phone call? Where does it turn into action?
Yeah. So action. By the way, it can code in every single language. So like, I can't even spell code, and I'm a professional coder now, as an example, right? Or if you want to book a trip to, say, I don't know, Bali, you can tell it literally to go find you the best price on an airline. Like, just tell it one time, and it can actually action it too, to buy it. So, hey, I want to go to Bali. I'm thinking around this date. Tell me quote me the best airfare, the best room rate, right? Where do I go when I'm in Bali? And here's what I like to do. So set me up, and I'm going to be in Bali for 5 days, 6 nights. So why don't you, based off what you know about me, create my itinerary?
Yeah, this is scary. Like my business, my side, I do mortgage lending, real estate lending. Why the hell do you need somebody like me? If you can do AI, can interact with the underwriting rules, appraised values, they can probably scan income documentation that's filed with the IRS.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's scary. So is it going to create new jobs? Like,
yes. Yeah, yep. Exactly. Yeah. So, this is what's scary is, they're saying, I think it was by 2030, but 40% of all jobs will be in the automation space, 40%. So, so what is that going to do? I can't remember, but it was like 1 out of every 3. It's a high percentage of jobs are going to be just, wiped out. However, there are going to be, a flood of new jobs. But what's scary is we really don't know what those are yet. Right. So
let me go back a little bit, and like, it's interesting. I gotten to know you, and, more we talk, the more I learn. But like, what I sensed in our podcast today is, I don't know, like, I don't want to throw words out there, but I am curious, like, paranoid's not the word, but like, you really think about, like, you're a little worried, right?
Yeah.
Have you always been that way?
Unfortunately, yes. But when I learned about blockchain in 2015, and then with charts are a way to see the future. And I knew that the world was going to be different and I've always been a few years ahead of my time. It's not because I'm smart. It's just because charts tell a story. It's around human emotions, and it's almost like I feel like a psychic. I mean, a macro. I mean, I am not some special person.
You are special, I think.
I am not, but like I knew that this decade was going to be difficult back in 2015. I didn't realize, we were going to have all this stuff. Right.
Yeah.
And the party's just getting started. By the way, if I could say one more thing around careers, because this is so relevant.
Say it.
So it's around in my battery, I have like 12%. So sorry, Dirk, but it's around demography. Okay. So as you may be aware, I was geeking out on demography about a year ago. I spent probably a good couple hundred hours on it.
Tell us what that is.
Yeah, so demography is really kind of the study of humans, population, as an example.
Okay.
And if you can just wrap your arms around population growth or decline, as an example, boy, you could do really well from an investing standpoint as well as a career standpoint. So here's kind of the net of what I learned is this is the oldest the world has ever been. We are old and we are getting older, combined with the birth rate is declining. So we need just to sustain the current populations across for any country, it needs to be, for every woman needs to be 2.1 kids. That's the average, right? And there's not one country that's even close to that. I think the US is at close to 1.1, 1.2, right? So why is this important? Because for today, now the Gen Zs are piggybacking off of the millennials, largest segment ever, even more so than the baby boomers. Well, now the Gen Zers are the smallest demographic ever coming off of the millennials. So why am I saying this? Is because I'm also thinking about seriously considering doing some hard labor. Why is that? And that's because, if you look at, I'll just pick on men for now, like hard labor. I think of men. Men shouldn't be picked on. That's how I'm dating myself. But, and this could, this is for men and women, but from the ages of 10 to 28, give or take, I might be off a year, right? But if you break down that category, and I'm going to oversimplify it into thirds. So 1/3 is a felon, 1/3 is not doing anything, and the other third is a high intellectual. Okay. Now, what I am seriously considering doing is, just like hard labor of, say, maybe, like pressure washing, because, and why is that? That's because there is no one out there to do that work. Right. And because especially the highly intellects, they're like, I'm not going to do that job. I'm going to go work at a NASDAQ 100 as an example.
Yeah. I mean, are you really talking about trades?
Trades. Trades is, by the way, this decade for trades. Yes, Dirk. I wouldn't have done the trades back when I was starting my career because I wanted to get into, there's a lot of people in trade, electrician, plumbers, all that kind of stuff. It is going to be so in vogue this decade.
Dude,
I love it, man. Money.
I have so many. I'm interviewing plumbers, electricians, HVAC framers. I don't understand why more people don't pursue trades. I mean, you're your own boss. The demand. I mean, it's like, corporate America. I mean, I've been laid off. I've had my quota raised, my commission cut. I mean, I'm not a corporate guy at all. I'm very independent like you. But if I was to rewind it, I mean, hell, talking about pressure wash, I friggin' love pressure wash. I do it all the time. My neighbors used to think I had a problem because I literally would clean off my drive. I don't know what it is. I get a pressure washer in my hand and I feel like God. But I'm with you, man. I think it's the future. And I'd love to see more young adults go down that road.
So I got to say this because I have 4% of my battery, but my son at the time was 13. He's like, I want to start a side hustle in the summer. I'm like, oh shoot, let's just do landscaping.
Yeah.
Right? Because Everybody's done that, or selling lemonade, right?
Yeah.
Well, lo and behold, the timing was perfect because that little landscaping job where you and I work, it's not highly densely populated, but he created this little landscaping gig, created enough work for 10 jobs for 4 consecutive summers, and he was making like 40 or 50 grand a summer. Why is that? Because there's no one else out there really that is going to do it.
Totally. By the way, you have
Right.
4% left on what?
My Mac.
Okay, so we
On
got to wrap this puppy up.
Yeah,
Okay,
sorry,
so
Dirk.
dude, this is good stuff. I mean, I love it. So let's just a couple questions, and you can answer them quickly. If you were to go back in time, 20, coming out of Windy Central over in Eberg, what would you do? Would you I mean, I know it's hard to say because you've had life experience, but knowing your life experience, and then the second question is, take away technology because I know you're really into it. You're into anything technology related. What would be your dream job? If there's some job out there like dancing or whatever. So first question, second question.
Yeah, what would I do different? I would have I would have spent more time exploring ideas, avenues. I was so young. I didn't realize how vast this world was and is. Just like talking to guys like you or, some of the guys that we know.
Talking to people more, learning more about being wise.
Learning more. I didn't do that.
Yeah, I think that's great advice for people. Like, if you don't know, talk to people. Go hang out.
It's so simple, and it's we've heard about it for generations. But I would have done that, and then what do I want to do? And I'm gonna live my dream. Meaning, I literally, and this, Dirk, because I taught myself how to trade. I am going to pay it forward, and I am literally, when my youngest son graduates, I bought a van. I'm getting it converted. I'm going to live in that thing, and I'm going to travel the country, and I want to teach people how to trade for free. I want to pay it forward.
I love it, man.
And that way I can meet people and have, buddies like you, and I want to see people make some money. And there's literally, that's it. I want nothing out of it but to see people, because these times are tough. And it's not going to get easier this decade. There's going to be a divide. I mean, there's going to be money. Money doesn't go away, but either on this side of the track or this side. And I want to make sure that I get people on the right side.
Anything else that you feel compelled to say along the lines of this podcast, advice, careers, anything that maybe you haven't said yet?
I'm going to say it one more time is GPT-4. It has leveled the playing field. If you don't know what to do, talk to it like a human. Talk to it like, it's your Catholic priest. Just be vulnerable with it. Don't outsmart it. Literally say, hey, I don't know what to do. Here's my skill set. Coach me, as an example.
Would it help write letters to my wife if I mess up or I don't speak her love language?
What's funny is when I get a difficult email, or I got to write a difficult email to my boss, guess who writes it for me? So yes.
Wow.
I know.
That's good advice, dude. This is good stuff. We went a lot of directions, but I think anyone watching this is going to think very hard about, especially if they're geared towards technology, what they're going to do. And I love it.
Yeah. Thanks, Dirk. And I think what you're doing is great, especially in these times. So good on you.
Do you think this chat could replace me? I mean, I think there'll always be need for podcasters, right?
That's a great question. It's like, seriously. But no, I've thought about that too. But I don't think this can be erased.
Yeah, I agree. And that Chat GPT-4, it sounds like a gang, doesn't it? I mean, it does. When you say it, I think of like those prison gangs. You know what I mean? It's scary, but maybe we could start our own little, you do t-shirts. How's that, John? And you and I will start wearing them, and who knows, maybe we, I don't know, dude, I've never been to this site. I've never done it. So is it as simple as just logging it in, going to the site and then hitting a button and then asking the question?
Yeah, literally, it's called prompts. And by the way, there's universities now creating degrees around prompt engineering. It's all about what you ask it to do.
Okay.
So it could be a series of questions, not just one. How about that? Like make it complicated if you want.
Dude, I wonder, I know we've got to go, but I wonder if people used it to try to figure out the NCAA college hoops tourney, like who's going to win the Final Four. You know how everybody fills out their brackets?
So actually, you know what, by the way, Chat GPT 3 and 4 only takes you, it only goes up to, I think, the fall of 2021.
Uh-huh.
But there's a Chrome extension that'll get you to current that just came out. So I think the Chrome extension came out after the brackets.
Okay. I just won mine. So
yeah, whatever. Yeah.
I did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. There's only 10 guys, but Final Four hasn't even happened and it's over because no number 1 seeds got in. But all right, buddy, John, I'm going to say thank you. And I really appreciate your help.
Yeah. Thanks, Dirk. And this is great stuff.
Yeah, man. I hope so. Take care.
Okay. Cheers.